Hello and welcome everybody. This is round number 2 of the Armory event that took place in Barcelona last Saturday. My name is Max, you might know me in Discord as MJed, and I will be commenting on what took place here. We saw last round Sergi, who was playing on the right on Katsu, took down Chain, and now on the left we have myself playing Boltyn, and I'm coming off of the bye actually, so I was a little fortunate there. And so when we're looking at this matchup here, we've got two very aggressive decks facing each other. We saw the Katsu in the previous round. He has like a very aggressive build. He's looking to attack early and often, and he really wants to put on the pressure. So this particular build of Boltyn is using Raiden, which kind of means that the V of the Vanguard turns are going to be very explosive, and the Lumina Ascension turns are going to be kind of like the value plays. You can do them off of like a 3-card hand maybe. But really what I am trying to set up here is to put a V of the Vanguard into the arsenal, and then come crack the chest, the hardened cross trap, to play it for free, charge 2 cards, and then come with the Raiden, the V, and hopefully 2 0-cost attacks for a massive turn. So that's kind of the game plan here. We saw so Boltyn won the die roll, and I chose to go second, which I believe is what you want to do, is particularly in Blitz and those aggro mirrors, because you really want to try and strip as many cards as you can from your opponent, starting from the second turn. Obviously the ninja is not the worst class to go first with, because you've got those pesky Kodachis that are really hard to block, because you know, if you pitch a blue Kodachi and you do block with cards from your hand, then maybe you don't have enough left to block the attack that is most likely coming after the Kodachi hits. So for this reason, many times you will see the ninja get in some chip damage on the first turn, but I do believe that it is worth it to take those hits, just so that you can come back and gain a bit of a tempo advantage on the return. So we see Sergi was starting off with a head jab, 2 Kodachis that were taken, and then an additional attack. I think this is like a 5-point attack that I just blocked. So I ended up taking 2 points of damage, but not a huge deal, and now I can look to try and apply pressure on the way back, maybe dealing some damage or taking some cards from the ninja's hand. We can also see very critically here, there's a V of the Vanguard hiding out in my starting hand. So that was something that I drew up in my first 4, and I am going to look to put this card in Arsenal, put 1 card in Soul now, and then set up for a huge turn on the next go. Right here you see pitching a yellow card coming in with a blue take flight, so this naturally has go again. Obviously not the strongest attack, it's just a 2-point, but really it is a 5-point attack, because you know that Raiden is going to come in for 3 afterwards, since I was able to use a charge, and it, you know, as I said before, the V of the Vanguard, I can set it up in the arsenal, and unless the ninja has some way to really force my hand, this is going to be a very quick game one way or the other. And this is really kind of like a thing that is specific to Boltyn. He really does not like to block at all. He wants to keep those big 4 or 5 card hands and then really swing large. And those big Boltyn turns are really scary. So, but that also in particular in the Blitz format means that the games are going to be over in a few turns. So Sergi is contemplating what to do here, and he decides, well, those 2 damage, I'm just gonna take them. I want to not give up tempo just yet, maybe keep a good 4-card hand, or well, 5-card hand, since he was on the play, so he gets to arsenal a card, and try and kind of like turn the tables immediately. Obviously the Raiden is coming in, no big surprise there, so this is another 3 damage, and Sergi says, you know what? I've got a good hand, I'm gonna take the 5, and this is not the most threatening attack ever, and I'm gonna look to really put some pressure back at you and see if I can stop your aggression here. So as I mentioned before, I've got a big. The Boltyn has a big turn lined up, so there's a good chance that you will see some no blocks here, which is always very scary when you're playing against the Boltyn. But the Katsu is definitely capable of having some really big turns as well. So it's not completely out of the question that he might be able to actually threaten lethal here. 18 points of damage, or rather 20 with the equipment that the Bolt player has available, might be is a possibility. He's going to start it off with a blue pitch and a Kodachi. Clearly this is just a no defense situation here, and he's really kind of now in the tank and considering how best to really do the maximum amount of damage, because that is really what he has to do here. Obviously he took some damage on his turn, so he has to come back big. Alright, he's gonna go with a rising knee thrust. This does not have go again in of itself, but you have access to the Snapdragon scaler, so if you have the combo line, or you are Katsu, there's a very good chance if this enters you can just discard one of your zero cost cards that you most likely have in hand and search up the next combo piece. So I would expect that if there is no block, there's going to be some massive damage dealt here. Now, as I alluded to before earlier, I really don't want to block here on the Boltyn. I'm just going to take the damage on the chin. I basically already know that. However, my hand is kind of interesting and is not the perfect draw that I would like to see. So I'm kind of like considering my options on how to maximize the attack that I will have on the way back. And the reason for kind of my consideration is that one of the cards that I have in hand is a Beacon of Victory. So the Beacon of Victory is interesting in the specific regard. Before we go there, let's continue concentrating on the ninja attack. So here is a Razor Reflex, so no need to crack the Snapdragon scalers. We actually have a way to give go again to this rising knee thrust. And obviously we get to activate Katsu and look up a what is it called? Hurricane Kick, something like that. Blackout Kick, I believe, is the card, right? So there's the 7 power combo kick. If it's I think that it's just in red anyway. So there's the finisher of the kicking line. So this is a 7-point attack, and yeah, so a good chunk of damage dealt, but as we can see, there's still 12 life points on the other side. So since this is not threatening lethal, the Boltyn player will just say, that's fine, I will be able to do 15 or more on my turn and threaten lethal back, so I will be able to gain the tempo advantage here, and that's kind of going to be the game plan. So Sergi is currently considering whether he wants to push an additional points of damage with the breaking scale, or if he maybe wants to use the boots and play the card from his hand, which is, I believe, a red whelming gust wave, so that would be another 3 points of damage. However, he would still be some points of damage short to threaten lethal, so he decides to just put it in the arsenal and then hopefully get to come back with a big turn after that. However, this is his hopes are dwindling, because now he's going to see the combo, if you will, just the perfect draw, essentially putting a V of the Vanguard into arsenal on your first turn and then cracking the hardened cross trap to use it on the second. So this is an attack for 5, and if you're not familiar with V of the Vanguard, what you can do is, as an additional cost, you charge any amount of cards that you want, and for every light card that you charged, in this case 2, all of the attacks on the chain get +1 for each light card. So in this case, all attacks get +2. So this is naturally a 3-point attack, but it's going up to 5. And due to this also means that since every attack on the chain is buffed in that way, the Boltyn attack reaction to give go again is active for the entire chain, and it is very easy to do a lot of damage. Okay, so obviously giving go again here, there was no defense. We've got another 5-point attack coming in now with the Raiden. There will be another go again most likely, and there are still 2 cards in hand. And as we can see, it is actually a red Express Lightning and a Beacon of Victory. So the interesting thing, as I talked about earlier when considering the attack, keeping the Beacon of Victory in hand means that you're actually kind of working with 1 less soul. So if you have, if you start the V turn with 1 card in soul, and you charge 2 cards and keep 2 cards, you actually have enough cards in soul to just exactly give all of your cards go again, without needing to use any of your equipment and do the entire turn. However, if you use the Beacon of Victory, and I actually had 2 in my hand, you need to remove a card from soul to use the pump effect, and that means that you don't have an extra soul to give go again to the attack that you're using, and then obviously you want to search up another attack with the Beacon of Victory and attack with that. So you will be forced to use your equipment or just choose something to put into the arsenal. Alright, so now the first 2 hits were taken, 10 damage was dealt, and now the Express Lightning is coming in for 6, so this is now a lethal attack, and there has to be some blocking. And this is obviously with the point where it gets very awkward for the ninja player, because aggressive build, right, there's basically no non-attacks that, well, there's going to be no defense reactions or almost no defense reactions, a lot of attacks, and that also means that the Boltyn ability is active, pumping the attack with an additional point of damage, so that makes the blocking very painful and difficult. However, he has access to some of his equipment, and he's going to choose to use that, so he's blocking for 5 points of damage. He would be taking 2 at this point, but it is getting pumped an additional point, so it's going to be up to 8. 6 from, well, 4 not naturally, 2 from the View of the Vanguard, 1 from the Boltyn ability because an attack was used to block, and then 1 from the Beacon of Victory. And I choose to search up a Snatch, so that is actually one of my favorite cards in the Raiden build, because it really puts a lot of, like, in those V-turns, it's just so strong. It puts on so much pressure, and because you've got this additional trigger. So but since I used the Beacon to search up this card, I had to use the Snapdragon Scalers as well, and so that means it will not be available for the follow-up turn. However, this attack obviously extremely threatening, and very, very critically, with 2 cards charged from your soul, it is a 6, maybe 7. Right, so if the other player chooses to defend with 2 attacks, it will go up to 7 and still deal 1 point of damage. So that's a very, very critical breaking point, because the on-hit trigger is also so potent, right? Just allowing the card draw here, allowing an additional card to be arsenaled, could be like a very big deal. So not only is this threatening lethal, this is also kind of like additionally threatening, well, it's threatening to draw a card, exactly, right? But as it turns out, so there's a bit of a discussion about how exactly the Boltyn ability works. That's kind of like a very common question. For example, if I block with 2 attacks at the same time, does the attack get buffed by +2? And the answer is no. It will only get buffed once, no matter how many attack action cards you are using to block. However, obviously, it will get buffed. So and it so happens to be the case that Sergi was forced to block with his entire hand, because there was only the option for him to block for 7. He had 2 cards that defended for 2, and 2 of his cards were attack actions, so there was no way for him to preserve his hand at all. So now he's got the option to either play the card in arsenal or not, and he's considering what he wants to do, and he, I believe, decides to play it out, trying to put some counter pressure. And this is obviously very unfortunate that it is only a 3-point attack, because he has no way to threaten lethal here. Now I'm currently looking at my hand and I'm thinking, this is going to be the last turn of the game. I may as well just use my equipment to block. It's not going to make a huge difference here. And in the off chance that Sergi manages to survive the attack that is coming, I will have a bit of a higher life total, and I will not be forced so quickly to block the Kodachis. Now Sergi is contemplating whether he wants to push an additional point of damage with the breaking scales. Currently this will be dealing 1 point of damage, and he will, I believe, decide to do so, which I think is not a bad idea, because this means that basically at this point his only out is to hope that the Boltyn player has like an off turn, like a turn where he can't actually chain multiple attacks together, which is a very real possibility, right? So if you on the Boltyn you end up running, you just drew into a hand where you have no buffs or no take flights, no natural go-agains, then you can get stuck with a hand where you can't actually give your cards go again, because the prerequisite of Boltyn's hero ability is that you have charged on the attack that you want to give go again has higher than base power. So he can kind of fizzle, and the only thing that can save him is the Snapdragon Scalers, but because of the way that the previous turn was played, the Snapdragon Scalers are not available. However, what we do see here is what happens is that I pitch a View of the Vanguard, which is always going to be a bad sign, because that kind of means, well, if you're pitching the View of the Vanguard, you have something that's better than View of the Vanguard, and so that's a very scary proposition. And what this happens to be is a Take Flight yellow, coming in for 3, maybe 4, and Sergi elects to block 5 points of damage here, so it's a full block, and now is a Take Flight red. And this is pretty much the end of the game, because the only thing that he can do now is again throw his entire hand at it, and then the Raiden will finish him off, and that's exactly what happens here. So that's the end of the game. As promised, it was fast and furious. That happens to be the case with Boltyn, in particular this build. I should just mention that now when I was looking back at the game, I noticed that there was a different line on the last turn. Instead of pitching the View of the Vanguard, it would have been possible to pitch the yellow Take Flight, play out the View of the Vanguard, charging only 1 card, using that one to give View of the Vanguard go again, and then using the remaining resource to play the red flight from hand that was also there. That way would have actually made an attack that would have been even stronger than the one that was made, so that would have been a 12-point attack instead of a 10-point attack. However, the downside would be not to have any soul after the fact. However, since the opponent already had such a low life total, there's a very good argument to be made to say, well, we're just going to push the 12-point attack and believe that is going to kill our opponent. However, there's no point in really thinking about this that much longer, because by the end of the day it didn't really make any difference, and Boltyn was victorious. Maybe it also should be thought about, how can you, every time you lose, if you're on the losing end, you want to think about, what can I do different, how can I improve? And unfortunately, and I believe this is also something that is a feature of the Blitz format, looking at this game, there's basically nothing that I can think of that the Katsu player could have really done differently here. It was really just kind of like a matter of the luck of the draw. If Boltyn happens to have that explosive of a start and you can't push the amount of damage, enough damage to force a block on that turn, there really isn't much you can do here. However, let me know in the comments if you see a line that Sergi could have taken to turn this game around. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next round.